What would you do if 20 million people were given a reason to find you, and the only thing standing between you and them was darkness, mountains, and your own training? Somewhere in the rocky highlands of southwestern Iran, an American weapons officer is doing exactly that right now, and the price on his head is more money than most families in that region will see in 6 years. Before we go any further, if stories like this fascinate you, do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second, and it tells the algorithm that you want more content that goes deep, not surface level. Subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video with someone who appreciates the kind of story that mainstream coverage barely scratches. Now let's get into this. The Iranian government made an announcement. Not quietly, not through back channels. They put it on state television for tens of millions of viewers to see. The message was simple and direct. Whoever captures an American pilot alive will receive a bounty, worth approximately $60,000 US. To understand what that number means, you have to look at where the pilot went down. The province is called Kogaluya and Boyer Ahmad. Most families living there earn less than $10,000 a year. Some earn far less. The bounty Iran offered is roughly 6 years of average household income. For a farmer, a shepherd, a truck driver, a shopkeeper, anyone watching that broadcast, this is not pocket change. This is life-changing money. And they did not just announce it once. They ran it as a crawl across the bottom of the screen. They urged people to shoot the Americans if they spotted them. They wanted the entire population mobilized, and it worked. Within hours, videos started circulating from semi-official Iranian news outlets showing locals firing at U.S. aircraft with rifles. The whole region was activated. The whole province became a search grid. Now, picture the man on the other side of this. A weapons systems officer from the 494th Fighter Squadron, based out of RAF Lakenheath in England. His F-15E Strike Eagle went down over this territory. His pilot was recovered by U.S. Special Forces on Iranian soil. He was not recovered. He is still out there, alone, in terrain he has never trained in specifically, surrounded by a civilian population that has been told he is worth a fortune. This is not a movie. This is not a drill. This is happening right now in real time, and the outcome is completely uncertain. Let me tell you what kicked into gear the moment that jet went down. The United States military has spent decades building a system for exactly this scenario. It is called CSAR, Combat Search and Rescue. It is one of the most complex, expensive, and dangerous operations that any branch of the military can execute. And the reason it exists is simple. America does not leave its people behind. That is not a slogan. That is an operational doctrine. And on April 3rd, it was tested in the most extreme way imaginable. At least one A-10 Warthog flew into Iranian airspace to provide cover. 2 MH-60 Pave Hawk helicopters flew in as well. An HC-130J Combat King, a specialized rescue aircraft, joined the operation. An RQ-9 surveillance drone was overhead, providing real-time intelligence. All of this was happening inside the borders of a hostile nation that had already demonstrated it could shoot down American aircraft that same afternoon. Footage that emerged showed the HC-130J flying at low altitude over the Iranian countryside, refueling a pair of Pave Hawk helicopters in mid-flight. Think about that for a moment. They were refueling helicopters in broad daylight over enemy territory. Below them, Iranian ground forces were actively searching for the downed crew. Above them, Iranian air defenses, the same systems that destroyed the F-15 and damaged an A-10, could have engaged at any moment. The crews on those aircraft knew all of this. They flew in anyway. Here is where the story takes on a different dimension entirely. Israel, which had been conducting its own military operations against Iran, made a decision that many people found surprising. They stood down. Every planned airstrike was put on hold, not reduced, not redirected, halted completely. The reason was one American pilot, still missing on the ground somewhere in those mountains. Israeli intelligence was feeding information to the rescue teams, helping to narrow the search area, but the air campaign stopped. An entire nation's military strategy paused because of a single person. That tells you something profound about what it means when a crew member is down. It is not just a tactical problem, it becomes the strategic priority. Everything else waits. Because the wrong bomb dropped in the wrong place does not just miss a target, it could kill the very person you're trying to save. The entire war, for a brief and extraordinary moment, revolved around one life. Now let's talk about what that person is actually going through right now. When a military aircraft goes down in hostile territory, the crew member's training shifts into a completely different mode. It is called SERE, Survival, Evasion, Resistance, Escape. 4 words, 4 lifelines. And right now, somewhere in the mountains of Kogaluya and Boyer Ahmad, this man is relying on every single one of them. Survival comes first. That means finding water, finding cover, managing injuries. Because here is something most civilians do not realize about ejecting from a fighter jet. It is one of the most violent things a human body can experience. The force of the ejection seat can fracture vertebrae. It can compress spinal discs. It can cause concussions and severe bruising. A former Marine fighter pilot named Amy McGrath described it honestly. She said he may be injured. He may be dealing with real physical pain from the ejection sequence on top of everything else he is facing. So picture this clearly. He is possibly hurt. He is definitely exhausted. He is in terrain he does not know well. And he needs to find shelter, water, and a place to rest without being seen by anyone, because anyone who spots him has a powerful financial incentive to turn him in. Evasion is the second pillar. That means moving at night, not during the day, staying off roads and away from villages, reading the landscape for natural cover, ridgelines, riverbeds, caves, anything that breaks up his silhouette and keeps him hidden from both aerial observation and ground patrols. The province where he went down is not flat desert. It is mountainous with high ridges and deep valleys. That terrain is both his enemy and his ally. It makes movement harder, but it also gives him places to disappear. Resistance is the part nobody wants to think about, but he has to. If Iranian forces or civilians find him before American rescue teams do, he knows what captivity looks like. He has studied it. He has been trained on what to say, what not to say, how to endure interrogation, how to hold on to his identity and his mission, even when everything around him is designed to break that down. That training is not theoretical. It is as real and as brutal as the situation he faces right now. Escape is the last pillar, and it never turns off. Even if captured, the training tells him to look for the gap, the moment of inattention, the weakness in the perimeter. Escape is not just a phase. It is a mindset that stays active from the moment the jet goes down until the moment his feet touch friendly ground. The first crew member, the pilot, was recovered by U.S. Special Forces on Iranian soil. That rescue was successful. But the second day arrived, and the second crew member was still missing. 24 hours is a critical threshold in search and rescue operations. The first hours after a shoot-down are when rescue is most likely to succeed. The crew member is closest to the ejection point. The search aircraft know where to focus. The enemy has not had time to saturate the area. Every hour after that window closes slightly, the search circle gets wider, the variables multiply, the terrain works against you, time works against you, and in this specific case, 20 million potential searchers work against you too. NPR geolocated one of the rescue operation videos to a bridge in Khuzestan province, a mountainous area roughly 100 miles inland from the nearest border. Not on a coastline, not near friendly territory. 100 miles inside Iran, in rough terrain, with active enemy forces in the area, and a civilian population that has been weaponized by their own government with a bounty announcement broadcast on national television. The Pave Hawks flying those missions, the crews who rappelled into Iranian territory to extract the first crew member, went back in. They are still going back in. Every single sortie is a risk calculation. Every approach to a possible location is a moment where the same air defenses that already brought down an F-15 and damaged an A-10 could lock on and fire. They go anyway. They go because leaving someone behind is not an option they are willing to accept. You know what? Before we go deeper into what this rescue has actually cost, let me pause and ask you something. Are you the kind of person who stays for the whole story? Because what comes next changes everything about how you understand this situation. If you are still watching, prove it. Drop a comment below right now with the word loyal. Not because I need engagement metrics, but because I genuinely want to know how many of you are the type who stay through the hard parts, who do not skip ahead, who give a story the time it deserves. That is who builds this community. People who do not look away. If that is you, subscribe and keep showing up. Now, back to the story. The cost of this operation has been staggering, and it is not over yet. The A-10 Warthog that was sent in to provide close air support for the rescue was hit. It took fire from the ground. The pilot was forced to eject over the Persian Gulf and was eventually recovered. That aircraft was destroyed. 2 Black Hawk helicopters that participated in the search and rescue mission were also hit by small arms fire. Crew members on board were wounded. The helicopters managed to land safely, but the damage was real. People were hurt. So let's add it up. To rescue one person, the United States deployed an F-15E strike force that was subsequently shot down, an A-10 that was destroyed, at least 2 Pave Hawk helicopters that took enemy fire, an HC-130J combat rescue aircraft, and an RQ-9 surveillance drone. Of all those assets, the A-10 was lost completely. The Black Hawks were damaged with wounded crew aboard, and the second crew member from the F-15 is still missing somewhere in those mountains. They did not say the search had been called off. They denied one specific report and nothing more. The search continues. Both sides are operating in the same mountains, looking for the same person, with completely opposite intentions. One side wants to bring him home. The other wants to bring him in. Now I want to zoom out for a moment and talk about the bigger picture, because this incident does not exist in a vacuum. The last time a U.S. fighter jet was shot down in combat was an A-10 during the 2003 invasion of Iraq. That was over 20 years ago. For an entire generation of military pilots, being shot down by enemy fire was something that happened in history books and training films, not in their actual careers. They trained for it, they prepared for it, but it remained abstract, distant. Until one Friday morning over southwestern Iran, it became terrifyingly real. A spouse, maybe, children, possibly, parents who are watching the news right now who got a phone call that changed everything, who are sitting in a house waiting for the next call, waiting to hear the words that say he was found, that he is safe. The first crew member who was rescued is alive and receiving medical treatment. His family got that call. The other family is still waiting. And that difference, that razor-thin line between knowing and not knowing, is happening right now in a living room somewhere while you watch this video. That is the human cost that never makes the headline. Hope is what you have when you have done everything you can and the outcome is no longer in your hands. It is backed by the fact that somewhere in a dimly lit command center, people who specialize in finding one person in a hostile landscape are still working through the night, still calculating, still pushing forward with incomplete information and impossible stakes. Hope in this context is not passive. It is operational. He could be moving through a dry riverbed under cover of darkness. He could be hiding in a structure. He could be injured and stationary, conserving energy, trusting his training, waiting for help. The intelligence is being gathered. The mission has not been called off. But the question that hangs over everything is whether they get there first. Every hour that passes changes the math. Every sunrise that finds him still exposed in open terrain increases the odds that someone spots him. Every village he has to move around is a risk. Every stream he crosses for water is a place where he might be seen. This is not a situation with a guaranteed ending. This is real life, and real life does not follow scripts. It does not guarantee that the cavalry arrives. It does not promise that the hero makes it home to his family. Sometimes the story does not resolve the way you want it to. And the families understand that truth in their bones. But the reason those Pave Hawk crews fly back into that airspace, the reason Israel paused its campaign, is because there is still a chance, still a possibility that this man walks out of those mountains. That is what it means when people say, nobody gets left behind. It is not a bumper sticker. It is a promise written in fuel and flight hours and blood and the willingness to put themselves in mortal danger for someone they may have never even met. It is a meaningful promise. Let me tell you what I think this whole situation reveals about the world we live in. It reveals that one person can stop a war. Not a general, not a president, one weapons officer in a flight suit who ejected over hostile ground. His fate paused an entire air campaign. His disappearance mobilized millions of people on one side and elite military units on the other. One person, one life. And the world holds its breath waiting to find out what happens next. That is the weight of a single human being in the machinery of modern war. If this story meant something to you, if it made you think about the cost of service, share this video. Not for me, for them, for the people who need these stories to be told with depth. That is why this channel exists. That is why we go deep when everyone else stays on the surface. And that is why we will keep covering stories that matter long after the headlines have moved on.